Dear listener, before we begin, take a breath. Let it be soft. Let it be yours. Let it remind you that this moment is already complete. We live in a world obsessed with fixing. Fixing our flaws, fixing our minds, fixing our past, fixing our pain. From the time we're young, we're taught that something is wrong with us, that we need to be better, stronger, calmer, smarter, more productive, more spiritual. That only when we've fixed everything, our habits, our bodies, our emotions, then maybe we will be worthy of peace. But what if that's never been true? What if your suffering doesn't come from being broken, but from believing you are? What if healing isn't about changing who you are, but remembering what was never lost? You don't need to fix yourself. That may sound radical. It may feel unfamiliar, because we've been conditioned to chase improvement. Even on the spiritual path, we turn practice into performance. Meditation becomes a tool for self-correction. Stillness becomes a goal to achieve. Even rest becomes another task on the to-do list. But in the heart of Buddhist wisdom, there's a deeper invitation. Not to strive, not to improve, not to perfect, but to return. To return to the still, clear space within you. The space that is already awake, already whole, already free. This is not a path of escape. It's a path of honesty. It asks you to stop running from your pain. To stop pretending you have to be more than you are. To stop fixing what was never broken. Instead, it asks you to sit down. To sit with yourself, with all your doubts, with your restlessness, with your fatigue and your questions and your contradictions. To bring them into the light of presence, not to solve them, but to see them. Because when you look gently, really gently, you'll see that there's nothing wrong with you. There is only tension where kindness is missing. Only confusion where clarity is waiting. Only grasping where letting go is possible. You don't need to be perfect to be free. You don't need to finish healing to begin resting. You don't need to become someone new in order to come home to yourself. This video is not a lecture. It's not a performance. It's not even a teaching in the traditional sense. It's a remembering, a quiet unfolding, a mirror that reflects your own inner truth back to you. Over the next hour, we will walk together, not toward fixing, but toward freeing. Not toward striving, but toward softening. These are not instructions, they are invitations. You will hear reflections, parables, reminders. You may resonate with some, you may resist others. That's okay. There is no one way to listen. You don't have to understand every word. You don't have to agree. You don't even have to stay fully awake. You just have to be here. That's all that's ever been asked of you. To bring your presence, to return to the body again and again. To rest your attention like a feather on this breath, to trust the process of simply being. Because when we stop trying to fix the moment, we begin to see it. When we stop trying to fix ourselves, we begin to meet ourselves. And when we meet ourselves, without judgment, without strategy, without pressure, we discover something shocking. That peace is not far away. It was only buried under all the trying. So let this be your gentle permission to stop, to soften, to be. Let this hour be a sanctuary for your nervous system, a refuge for your mind, a reminder that you are already whole and that you were never meant to do this alone. Let go of the effort, let go of the role, let go of the story of how you should be. Come as you are and begin again. 1. You are not broken. There's a quiet ache many people carry, even if they never say it aloud. It sounds like this. Something is wrong with me. It hides in our relationships, in our silence, in the way we over-apologize or overcompensate. It shows up when we compare ourselves to others, when we're afraid to rest, when we can't explain why we feel like we're falling behind, even when everything seems fine. Sometimes it's subtle, like a constant hum in the background. Other times, it's loud, It shouts, "I'm not enough, I should be better, I should be over this by now." But here's the truth. You are not broken. You may be carrying pain, you may be tired, you may be healing from things you haven't fully named, but you are not a mistake. This belief that we're fundamentally flawed is one of the most harmful illusions we inherit, and it runs deep. It can even sneak into our spiritual practice. We sit on the cushion not to meet ourselves, but to fix ourselves. We breathe not to feel peace, but to silence our discomfort. We meditate hoping to get rid of the parts of us we don't like. But the Buddha didn't teach us to escape our humanity. He taught us how to be fully present with it. He saw clearly that suffering doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. That confusion, fear, anger, sorrow, they aren't defects. They are visitors, and they can be met with awareness instead of shame. The mind has a habit of thinking that something is always missing, that there's some version of you out there in the future who's finally worthy, finally peaceful, finally healed. And until you become that version, you don't fully deserve rest or joy or belonging. But what if that future self doesn't exist? What if there is only now? Only this moment, only this version of you, tender, imperfect, awake, learning to trust what's already here. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to earn your place in the world. The sun doesn't shine because it deserves to. It shines because it is. And in the same way, your worth is not based on what you do. It's based on what you are, and what you are is awareness. What you are is life itself, experiencing itself through this body, this breath, this journey. Even your struggles are part of the path, not obstacles to your growth, but teachers of it. Sometimes the breaking is what lets the light in. Sometimes the falling apart is the beginning of realignment. Sometimes the pain is how the old self makes room for the true self to emerge. In Zen, they say, when the mind is free of judgments, the world is at peace. But what they don't always say is that those judgments begin inside. They begin with how you speak to yourself, with how you look in the mirror, with the stories you repeat. I'm too much, I'm not enough, I don't belong. These stories are not facts. They are echoes. They are habits of mind passed down from a culture obsessed with improvement, a culture that profits from your self-doubt. But the Dharma is different. The Dharma doesn't demand that you become something. It invites you to remember what you already are beneath the noise. You are the sky, not the weather. You are the space, not the storm. And just like the sky, you don't need to be cleaned or fixed or made perfect. You only need to be seen. So notice what happens when you stop trying to improve, when you stop trying to perform, when you stop trying to win a spiritual race that doesn't exist. You might find yourself relaxing, you might find yourself breathing more deeply. You might even find a softness you forgot you could feel. Let that be enough. Let this moment be enough. You don't have to be healed to be whole. You don't have to be certain to be free. You don't have to be anything other than exactly who you are right now. Dear listener, this is the foundation of healing. Not fixing, but remembering. Not striving, but softening. Not becoming someone else, but coming home. Welcome back. 2. The myth of self-improvement. There's a subtle belief that runs through much of modern life, and it sounds like this: if I could just improve enough, I'd finally be okay. It's so familiar, we barely question it. We apply it to everything: our productivity, our diets, our relationships, even our spiritual practice. We consume books, courses, habits, mantras, hacks, all in the name of becoming better. And if we're honest, some of it helps. Structure can support us. Discipline can steady us. Learning can open our eyes. But when we look deeper, something strange happens. The more we chase self-improvement, the more we reinforce the idea that who we are right now isn't enough. That peace lies somewhere else, in some better version of us that hasn't yet arrived. That worthiness is conditional, that healing is a destination we haven't reached. This is the myth of self-improvement. And like all myths, it has a shadow. It keeps us restless, always reaching, never arriving. The Buddha didn't teach us to improve ourselves. He taught us to know ourselves. He taught us to see clearly, to wake up, not to become perfect, but to become present. Because it's not the self that needs to be upgraded. It's our understanding of the self that needs to be seen through. When we believe the myth of self-improvement, we measure ourselves constantly. We compare. We strive. We judge our progress. Even our meditation becomes a scorecard. Was that a good sit? Did I reach calm? Am I improving fast enough? But real practice isn't about achieving. It's about surrendering. It's about sitting down, just as we are, and seeing what's true without needing to manipulate it. You are not a project. You are not a machine to optimize. You are not behind. You are not late. The very idea of fixing yourself assumes that there's a perfect version of you waiting at the end of some long path. But what if there isn't? What if there's just this moment, this body, this breath, ripe with wisdom, even in its rawness? When we stop chasing transformation, we make space for true change, not forced change, not cosmetic change, but organic, natural unfolding, like a flower opening to the sun without effort or instruction. In the Zen tradition, there's a saying, "When the shoe fits, the foot is forgotten." Meaning, when we are aligned with our true nature, we don't obsess over self anymore. We move freely, we live simply, we love gently. The endless need to fix dissolves because there's no longer a problem to solve. Ask yourself gently, who would I be without the need to improve? What would I feel if I didn't have to get better? What might open in me if I stopped striving? Maybe you'd feel spacious, maybe you'd feel scared, maybe both. It can feel unsettling to let go of self-improvement because for so long it's given us direction, identity, even safety. But the path of awakening isn't a path of becoming. It's a path of remembering. You don't walk it to become someone else. You walk it to remember the quiet truth of what you already are. And that remembering happens not through effort, but through stillness. Not through more content, but through deeper presence. It's not about doing more. It's about letting go of what hides the truth. So today, consider this. You don't need to improve. You need to listen. You need to soften. You need to trust the unfolding that's already happening inside you. There is a rhythm to healing. It doesn't rush. It doesn't compete. It doesn't perform. It breathes. It waits. It returns. Let your practice return you to simplicity. Let your breath be enough. Let this moment be holy, not because it's impressive, but because it's real. You are not a self to be improved. You are awareness awakening to itself. And that, dear listener, is more than enough. 3. The wisdom of letting go. Letting go, such a simple phrase, and yet so misunderstood. We often hear it as a kind of dismissal. Just let it go, people say, as if it's easy, as if pain can be dropped like a stone, as if grief can be shaken off like dust. But true letting go is not forced. It's not a command. It's not something we do to get rid of feelings we don't like. True letting go is an act of deep wisdom, a recognition, a surrender. It is the understanding that clinging, no matter how subtle, is the root of our suffering. The Buddha saw this clearly. In his very first teaching after enlightenment, he spoke of craving, of grasping, of attachment. He said, "We suffer not because life is painful, but because we hold so tightly to how we think it should be. We try to freeze impermanence. We try to possess what cannot be possessed. We try to control what cannot be controlled." Letting go does not mean giving up. It does not mean apathy. It means softening our grip on the illusion of control. It means recognizing that control is exhausting. It means acknowledging the ways we resist what already is. Resisting change, resisting endings, resisting not knowing. And it means choosing again and again to open instead of tighten, to release instead of force, to allow instead of fight. But letting go isn't something you can force. It happens in its own time. Sometimes it begins with exhaustion, when we simply can't hold on anymore. Sometimes it begins with insight, when we see clearly that holding on is only hurting us. And sometimes it begins with kindness, when we realize we're allowed to rest. Letting go can be as small as an exhale, as quiet as a pause in thought, as invisible as a shift in attitude. It can look like walking away from an argument instead of proving a point. It can look like loosening the schedule instead of tightening it. It can look like forgiving yourself for not being further along. And sometimes letting go is just letting something be, not fixing, not changing, not improving, just seeing and allowing. This is the wisdom of letting go. It's not about eliminating pain. It's about meeting life with less resistance, about finding the place inside you that no longer needs to hold everything together. A place that trusts the unfolding, even when it's uncertain. There's a story in Zen about a student who came to the master full of questions. He wanted to understand enlightenment, the nature of reality, the mechanics of awakening. The master poured him tea and kept pouring until the cup overflowed. The student cried out, "Stop! The cup is full." And the master said, "Yes, just like your mind. How can I teach you anything unless you first empty your cup?" That story is not about knowledge. It's about letting go of what we think we know. It's about creating space for something new to enter. And that space, inner spaciousness, is one of the greatest gifts of practice. You see, when we're always full of thoughts, of judgments, of expectations, there's no room to breathe, no room to see clearly, no room for peace. But when we release even a little, when we open even slightly, clarity arises. Insight comes. Softness returns. Letting go is not a one-time event. It's a rhythm, a pulse, a returning. Over and over again, we're invited to release, to let go of control, to let go of judgment, to let go of the story, to let go of being right, to let go of being certain, to let go of needing it to be different. And every time we do, something in us breathes. So dear listener, let this be your gentle reminder. You don't have to carry it all. You don't have to hold so tightly. You don't have to know what's next. You can let go, not because you're failing, but because you're finally trusting. And in that trust, there is peace. 4. Seeing clearly without judgment. One of the most powerful shifts on the path of healing is learning how to see without judgment. We spend so much of our lives labeling everything: good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure. We don't just observe our experience. We evaluate it. We assign meaning, worth, value, and we do it so automatically we hardly notice we're doing it. But this habit of judging keeps us stuck. It separates us from the world, from others, from ourselves. The Buddha taught that clear seeing, vipassana, is the heart of liberation. But clear seeing doesn't mean analyzing. It doesn't mean interpreting. It means looking at what is, directly, honestly, and without interference. When a thought arises, just see the thought. When a feeling arises, just feel the feeling. Without labeling it as wrong, without turning it into a story, without making it personal. This is harder than it sounds, because we've been taught to believe that our inner world is either right or wrong. That sadness is a weakness. That anger is dangerous. That anxiety means failure. And so we fight what we feel. We try to fix it, change it, push it away. But what we resist grows stronger, and what we judge stays hidden. Healing begins the moment we stop fighting ourselves. The moment we allow experience to be what it is, not what we think it should be. Imagine this, you're walking in nature and you come across a river. Do you criticize the water for moving too fast? Do you blame the current for being cold? No. You simply observe, you watch, you listen, you accept that the river is the river. Can you do the same with your own experience? Can you watch your thoughts without believing them? Can you feel your emotions without identifying with them? Can you allow discomfort without calling it a problem? This is the practice. And it's not about being passive. It's about being present. When we stop judging, we start understanding. We begin to notice the patterns beneath the pain, the stories beneath the reactions, the tenderness beneath the anger. And we relate to ourselves not as something to manage, but as something to meet. Non-judgment doesn't mean indifference. It means curiosity. It means compassion. It means holding space for the mess without collapsing into it. When we drop judgment, even briefly, a kind of light enters, the light of clarity, the light of truth. And in that light, something softens. We no longer have to prove ourselves. We no longer have to perform. We no longer have to protect against our own hearts. You see, judgment is often a shield. We use it to stay safe, to stay in control, to keep vulnerability at a distance. But the truth is, it costs us connection with others and with our own lives. The Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki once said, "Each of you is perfect the way you are, and you can use a little improvement." It sounds like a contradiction, but it's a doorway. You are already whole, and you are always unfolding. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived. So when you feel lost, don't judge it. When you feel anxious, don't fix it. When you feel numb, don't rush it away. Just see it, gently, with the eyes of a quiet witness. This is what it means to see clearly, to be awake in the middle of experience, not outside of it. To be kind without needing to rescue. To be still without needing to escape. Dear listener, perhaps the most healing thing you can offer yourself is not a plan, not a solution, not a goal, but your attention, your honest, soft, curious attention. Let your awareness become your refuge. Let presence become your path. Let judgment fall away like leaves in the wind. And in that space, clarity arises, truth returns. Peace finds you, not because you forced it, but because you made room for it to come. 5. Karma is energy, not punishment. A word that carries so many misunderstandings. In modern language, we often use it like a weapon. She hurt someone. Karma will get her. I must be paying for something I did in a past life. If this went wrong, it must be because I did something wrong. But this view turns karma into a system of rewards and punishments, a cosmic scoreboard, a moral calculator. It makes us afraid, it makes us blame, and it misunderstands what karma truly is. The Buddha didn't teach karma as punishment. He taught it as energy, as cause and effect, as movement, intention, vibration. Karma is not a sentence, it's a pattern. It's the way your actions, words, and thoughts ripple into the world and return back to you like echoes. Every moment you speak with kindness, that energy carries forward. Every time you act with cruelty, that energy echoes too. Not because the universe is judging you, but because everything is interconnected. Your choices are not isolated. They leave imprints. They shape the path ahead, and not just externally, internally too. When you speak with anger, you reinforce anger in your own body. When you act with mindfulness, you deepen clarity within yourself. When you choose compassion, even in pain, you plant seeds of peace in places far beyond your knowing. This is the law of karma. Not be good or else, but be mindful, because everything you touch touches you back. You see, karma is always moving. It is not fixed, not permanent. The seeds you've planted in the past may bloom now, but what you plant now also matters. This means you are never stuck, never doomed, never bound by what you once did, once thought, once believed. Each moment is a doorway, each choice a turning point. And so the question becomes, what kind of energy are you generating now? What kind of world are you creating with your actions, your silence, your attention? There's a teaching in the Dhammapada that says, we are what we think. With our thoughts, we make the world. It's a reminder that karma is not some faraway principle. It's intimate, immediate, alive in the way you treat your own heart, in the way you look at a stranger, in the way you pause before reacting. And when we understand this, not just in the mind but in the body, we begin to take radical responsibility, not in guilt but in empowerment. You are not a victim of karma. You are the creator of it. Not through control but through awareness. Not through fear but through presence. This is good news, because it means no one is beyond healing. No story is beyond rewriting. No cycle is beyond transformation. But it takes honesty. It takes humility. It takes deep looking at the energy you are carrying and the energy you are feeding. Because if you keep feeding the same patterns, you'll keep living the same loops. And the most common loop? Trying to fix pain by avoiding it. Trying to heal karma by rejecting it. But what if healing begins when you turn toward it? What if karma isn't here to punish you, but to teach you? To show you what you're still holding, to reveal the stories you've inherited, to give you the mirror you need to see your own mind. Dear listener, your karma is not your enemy. It's your invitation to bring light to the unconscious, to bring breath into the stuck places, to bring love where there has been forgetting. Karma is not who you are, it is what you carry, and what you carry can be put down. With intention, with compassion, with presence. You don't need to be afraid of karma, you only need to be awake to it. And that awakening begins right here in this breath. 6. You are not your thoughts. The mind is a storyteller. From the moment we wake up to the moment we sleep, it weaves. It narrates, it judges, it plans, it remembers, it projects, it speaks in your voice, it knows your history, it sounds convincing. But here's something most of us were never taught. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. It may sound simple, even obvious, but in practice, it's revolutionary. Because most of our suffering doesn't come from life itself. It comes from the thoughts we believe about life. Not from the situation, but from the story. A single moment of silence might be peaceful, but then the mind says, you should be doing something. A single wave of sadness might be natural, but then the mind says, you're weak for feeling this, and suddenly, the moment is no longer just itself. It's layered with meaning, judgment, resistance. Thoughts are not enemies. They are not problems. They're just phenomena. Like clouds in the sky. They arise, they pass, but when we believe them blindly, we suffer. The Buddha called this mental proliferation, the way one thought multiplies into 1,000. A memory becomes a regret, a plan becomes anxiety, a sensation becomes a diagnosis, a feeling becomes a flaw. But when we sit in stillness, when we observe the mind instead of merging with it, something changes. We begin to notice the space between thoughts, the silence beneath them, the awareness that watches without comment. This awareness is you, not the content of the mind, but the container, not the storm, but the sky. The practice then is not to stop thinking. The practice is to stop identifying, to see each thought as a visitor, not a master, to respond instead of react, to choose curiosity over fusion. You might hear the mind say, I'm not doing enough. And instead of believing it, you pause. You breathe. You ask, is that true? You ask who's speaking. You remember, just a voice, just a pattern, just energy moving through. Thoughts are often echoes. Echoes of childhood, echoes of culture, echoes of fear, of longing, of habit. They're not necessarily wise. They're not always yours. And they are never the whole story. One of the great freedoms in spiritual practice is learning to relate to the mind as just one aspect of being, not as your identity. You are not your self-talk. You are not your inner critic. You are not even your insights. You are that which sees, that which listens, that which remains when all the noise falls quiet. This doesn't mean you push thoughts away. It means you make room for them without becoming them. You bow to them without obeying them. You recognize their nature, impermanent, conditioned, empty of self. In mindfulness, we say, seeing is enough. You don't need to fix the thought. You don't need to answer it. You don't need to fight it. Just notice, just return, just rest in awareness. Over time, this creates space, and in that space, there's choice. And in that choice, there's peace. So when the mind spins, when it tells you stories of unworthiness or fear, try this. Don't argue, don't follow. Just sit, breathe, listen, and whisper gently to yourself, this is a thought, not a truth. This is weather, not the sky. This is passing, I am staying. Dear listener, this is not about escaping your mind. It's about remembering your true nature beyond it. You are not your thoughts. You are not your worries. You are not the voice in your head that says you are broken. You are the silence that hears. You are the space that allows. You are the awareness that never leaves. And that is enough. 7. Making peace with uncertainty. We crave certainty. The mind wants to know. It wants answers, guarantees, control. It wants to see the path ahead, clearly, safely, without surprises. And when life doesn't offer that, which it rarely does, we feel afraid. We cling harder. We try to predict, to plan, to protect ourselves from the unknown. But here's the quiet truth. Life was never meant to be certain. Every breath is a risk. Every relationship is fragile. Every future is unwritten. And despite all our plans, all our logic, all our effort, we never really know what's coming. That's not failure. That's reality. The Buddha didn't teach us how to predict life. He taught us how to meet it. He taught that clinging to certainty, just like clinging to anything, is a cause of suffering. Because the more we need things to be a certain way, the more we suffer when they change. And change is the one thing we can count on. So the practice becomes, how do we stay open in the face of not knowing? How do we make peace with the fact that we don't have all the answers? That we can't guarantee outcomes? That we're not in control of the next moment? It begins with honesty. Admitting to ourselves, I don't know. Admitting that this uncertainty isn't a flaw to be fixed, but a truth to be befriended. Then it deepens into humility, trusting that we don't have to know everything to be okay. That wisdom doesn't always come from having the answer. Sometimes it comes from staying with the question. In Buddhism, this is called beginner's mind, a mind that is fresh, open, curious, not locked into assumptions, not clinging to outcomes, but awake to each unfolding moment. And when we live from beginner's mind, we soften. We listen more deeply. We respond with more presence, less panic. We realize that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a dance to be joined. Not a script to follow, but a mystery to embrace. There's a kind of beauty that only appears when we stop needing to be certain. It shows up in the quiet pause between plans, in the stillness when everything we counted on dissolves, in the surrender of saying, I don't know, but I'm here. And from that space, something new can grow. Not from control, but from presence. Not from knowing, but from trust. Letting go of certainty doesn't mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean we stop caring or making wise choices. It means we hold those choices more lightly. It means we do what we can and release the rest. It means we live with our eyes open, not just our minds. It means we allow life to surprise us, to humble us, to teach us. The river doesn't know every twist ahead, but it flows. The tree doesn't know how long the season will last, but it sheds its leaves. The sky doesn't cling to the sun or the rain. It holds them both, then lets them go. Can you be like that? Can you live in harmony with the unknown? Not by forcing clarity, but by choosing presence, by meeting each breath, each step, each feeling as it comes, without needing a map for what's next. Dear listener, if uncertainty has made you anxious, you're not alone. We've been taught that safety comes from control. But what if real safety comes from acceptance? From knowing that even if you don't know the path, you can trust the ground beneath your feet. Even if the future is unclear, your next breath is already here. Even if everything changes, your awareness remains. The truth is, we are always living in the unknown. We just forget. So let this be your remembering. Let this be your practice. Not to eliminate uncertainty, but to make peace with it. To sit with it, to breathe with it, to walk gently with it, as a companion, not a threat. You don't need to know everything to be at peace. You only need to be here. 8. Return to simple living. In a world of more, simplicity is a radical act. We are constantly told to accumulate more things, more goals, more skills, more knowledge, more progress. We scroll through lives fuller than ours, convinced we're behind. We fill our days with tasks, our minds with noise, our homes with objects, our hearts with comparison. And slowly, almost invisibly, we drift away from ourselves. Not because we are broken, but because we are buried. Under too much, under the weight of wanting, under the pressure to be everything, know everything, experience everything. But deep within, something in us longs to return, to quiet, to enoughness, to peace. That's what simplicity offers, not restriction, but space, not emptiness, but presence, not sacrifice, but clarity. In Buddhist tradition, simplicity isn't just a lifestyle, it's a path, a way of aligning outer life with inner truth, of living lightly so the heart can breathe more freely. This doesn't mean you have to live in a cave or give up all your belongings. It means asking, what really matters? What nourishes me? What can I release? Not out of lack, but out of love. Simplicity invites you to be deliberate, to create more with less, to rest without guilt, to consume less information so you can hear your own wisdom, to declutter not just your shelves but your thoughts. When the Buddha left his palace, he wasn't rejecting life. He was returning to it. He saw that luxury did not bring peace, that comfort did not guarantee freedom, that having more was not the same as being whole. And so he chose a path of moderation, not indulgence, not deprivation, but balance. That's the heart of simple living, a rhythm that honors your inner life as much as your outer one. You don't need to renounce the world to live simply. You just need to slow down enough to truly be in it, to taste your tea instead of gulping it, to walk without rushing, to do one thing at a time, to notice the sun through the window, to speak with intention, to let silence be enough. In a noisy world, simplicity becomes sacred because it gives you back your attention, your time, your breath, yourself. There's a Zen saying, when you walk, just walk. When you eat, just eat. It sounds almost silly in a culture obsessed with multitasking, but the wisdom is clear. Presence is found not by doing more, but by doing less, more fully. And when you do, life becomes vivid again. Not louder, but clearer. Not faster, but deeper. A simple life is not a boring life. It's an intentional one. One where you no longer confuse busyness with purpose, where you no longer measure your worth by productivity, where you begin to trust that who you are is not defined by what you accomplish. Simplicity strips away the noise so you can hear your own heartbeat, so you can remember what you've always known but maybe forgotten. That joy doesn't come from constant stimulation. It comes from alignment, from honesty, from small sacred moments lived with full attention. Dear listener, you don't have to do more to be more. You don't have to fill every moment. You don't have to impress the world. You can return to quiet, to breathe, to the gentle rhythm of enough. Let your life be simpler, not because you're failing, but because you're free. Not because you lack, but because you choose. Not because you should, but because something in you already knows. Peace isn't found in having everything. It's found in needing less. And in that less, there is room to be fully alive. 9. The power of ritual and presence. In the rush of daily life, we often overlook the simple moments. We pour the tea but don't taste it. We walk but don't feel the earth. We speak but forget to listen. Our bodies are present, but our minds are elsewhere. Always moving, always anticipating, always reaching. Presence has become rare, and yet it is the very doorway to peace. In Buddhist practice, presence is not something we force. It's something we return to, over and over again. Not because we must, but because we can. One of the most beautiful ways to return is through ritual. Not grand ceremonies or elaborate traditions, though those have their place, but quiet, personal, intentional rhythms of awareness, tiny sacred acts woven into ordinary life. Ritual is a way of slowing down, of making the invisible visible, of reminding the heart what matters most. Lighting a candle before meditation, placing your hands together before a meal, walking the same path each morning in silence, beginning the day with a single bow to life. These aren't obligations, they're invitations to pause, to honor, to feel. When we bring ritual into daily life, we begin to touch everything with mindfulness. Washing the dishes becomes a meditation, folding laundry becomes an offering, brushing your teeth becomes a return to the body. Turning off your phone becomes an act of compassion. The Zen tradition calls this practice in every moment, not separate from life, but inside it, not away from the world, but right in the middle of it. Because awakening isn't somewhere else. It's in the breath as you wake, in the way you greet the day, in how you speak to the ones you love, in how you meet the ones you don't. Ritual grounds us in what is real. It gives shape to the formless. It turns fleeting moments into sacred space. And you don't need to follow anyone's formula. Your ritual can be as simple as drinking tea with both hands, lighting incense before sleep, whispering gratitude before a meal, or placing a stone on your altar as a symbol of something you're releasing. What matters is not the form, but the presence inside it. Because presence changes everything. Presence is the difference between eating mindlessly and tasting your food, between hearing words and truly listening, between rushing through a task and meeting it with full attention. And presence can only live in one place, now, not in yesterday's regrets, not in tomorrow's to-do list, but in this breath, this step, this touch. The mind will try to pull you away. That's okay. Let ritual be the gentle tether that brings you back. Let presence be the light you walk by. When we live with presence, even ordinary acts become sacred. Making the bed, boiling water, sweeping the floor. These are not distractions from the path. They are the path. The Buddha himself taught this through his own life, not just in words, but in actions. Walking mindfully through the forest, begging for food with gratitude, eating in silence, sleeping under the stars, teaching that enlightenment is not found by escaping life, but by fully entering it. And that's what ritual reminds us of. You don't need to seek something beyond this moment. You only need to meet it fully. Dear listener, your life is not separate from your practice. Your day is not separate from your Dharma. Your breath is not separate from your awakening. Let ritual guide you, not to become someone else, but to remember who you already are. Let presence carry you, not as a task, but as a gift. You don't need to do more. You just need to arrive, again and again and again. And in that arrival, quietly, without effort, peace meets you. 10. Weathering emotional storms. Emotions are not problems. They are not signs of failure or weakness. They are waves, natural, temporary, and deeply human. And yet, most of us were never taught how to be with them. We learned how to hide them, how to analyze them, how to silence them, or how to let them consume us entirely. We live in a culture that divides emotions into good and bad, positive and negative. Joy, excitement, gratitude, those are welcome. Sadness, anger, fear, those are treated like mistakes. But the Dharma teaches a different view. It teaches that emotions are weather, not identity. They arise, they stay for a while, they pass. Just like the rain, just like the wind, just like the sun returning after a storm. You are not your anger, you are not your grief, you are not your anxiety, you are the one who observes them. You are the open sky that holds them all. When a storm of emotion arrives, the goal is not to push it away. It's not to fix it. It's not even to understand it immediately. The practice is to stay, to breathe, to soften, to create space between the feeling and the reaction. Anger rises, notice it, breathe with it, don't feed it with story. Sadness arrives, let it move through you. Offer it compassion, not resistance. There is wisdom inside every emotion, if we can learn to listen without clinging. Anger may be protecting a boundary that was crossed. Fear may be guarding something precious. Grief may be honoring what was once loved. Even numbness, the absence of feeling, may be a sign of exhaustion, a cry for rest. The mistake we make is thinking we have to solve the emotion, or worse, that we have to justify it. But emotions don't need explanation. They need presence. Like a child crying in the dark, emotions settle when they feel held. So when the storm comes, and it will, remember this: you are allowed to feel. You are allowed to not have it all together. You are allowed to be a mess sometimes. That does not make you less spiritual. It makes you real. In fact, being with emotions skillfully is the practice. The Buddha himself taught mindfulness of feeling as one of the 4 foundations of awareness. Not to judge feelings, not to control them, but to observe their arising and passing with compassion and clarity. He compared the practitioner to a mountain, still, solid, unmoved by wind or rain. Can you be like that mountain? Can you stay rooted while the storm moves around you? Not by suppressing, not by pretending, but by allowing without drowning. There may be moments when the wave feels too big, when you feel overwhelmed, shaken, lost. In those moments, return to the breath, return to the ground beneath you, feel your feet, place a hand on your heart, whisper to yourself, "This is just a wave. I am still the ocean," because you are. You are deeper than the emotion, wider than the fear, more spacious than the storm. And over time, as you practice this, something shifts. You begin to fear your emotions less. You begin to trust your capacity to stay. You begin to realize that emotions don't break you, they shape you. They refine the heart. They teach resilience. They deepen empathy. Dear listener, you don't have to get rid of your emotions to find peace. You just have to stop making them wrong. You don't have to feel good all the time to be on the path. You just have to feel what's true. Let yourself be human. Let yourself feel. Let yourself be held by the practice of presence. This too is awakening. This too is healing. This is enough. 11. Living with death in mind. Most of us live as if we have forever. We plan as if the future is promised. We delay what matters. We postpone truth. We avoid endings. We speak of someday as if it were a place we are sure to arrive. But the Buddha taught that remembering death is not morbid. It is liberating. He called it maranasati, mindfulness of death. Not as fear, but as clarity. Not to make us anxious, but to make us awake. Because when we forget death, we forget life. We get lost in distractions, we hold grudges, we chase things that don't feed the soul. We wait for perfect timing, we avoid saying what we truly feel. But when we remember death, not just in the abstract but in the marrow, we begin to live differently. We become more honest, more tender, more present, more willing to forgive, more willing to let go. Suddenly, the small annoyances matter less. The unspoken "I love you" feels urgent. The simple joy of breath feels holy. In Buddhist monasteries, monks chant daily, "All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me." Not to create sadness, but to cultivate wisdom. Because impermanence is not a flaw of life. It is the very condition that makes love possible. We cherish what we know we might lose. We savor what we know won't last. We love more deeply when we stop assuming we'll always have more time. And so, living with death in mind doesn't mean living in fear. It means living with intention. It means saying the thing, taking the walk, making the call, sitting in stillness, watching the moon, touching the earth with your bare feet, looking someone you love in the eyes and really seeing them. It means not holding back, not waiting to feel ready, not needing to have it all figured out. Just being here, fully, because that's all we ever truly have, this breath, this moment, this heartbeat. When we live with death in mind, we make peace with change. We stop resisting the natural cycles of life. We begin to see that endings are not failures, they're transitions. They're openings, like leaves falling in autumn, like waves returning to the sea, like a final exhale that carries the soul home. And perhaps the most powerful shift is this: we stop living as separate. We see ourselves as part of something vast. We belong to life and to death, not as opposites, but as partners. In Zen they say, "Die before you die, and you will never die." It means to let the false self die now, the ego, the clinging, the illusion of control, so that what's real can live, so that when the moment comes, we are not afraid. We are ready, not because we wanted to go, but because we finally lived. Dear listener, one day you will die, but every day you have a chance to live honestly, to live gently, to live without waiting. Let death not be a shadow, but a lantern. Let it light your way toward what truly matters. Let it strip away everything that is not essential. Let it return you, not to fear, but to love. Because when you remember that everything ends, you also remember that everything is precious. And in that remembering, you are free. 12. The heart of compassion. There is a strength softer than force, a power deeper than control, a clarity brighter than certainty. And that is compassion. In Buddhism, compassion, karuna, is not a mood or a feeling. It is a way of seeing, a way of living, a way of opening the heart again and again to the suffering in ourselves and in others, without turning away. So often, we think of compassion as something we give to others, to loved ones, to strangers, to those in pain. But we forget that compassion also begins with us, with the way we speak to ourselves in silence, with the way we treat our own wounds, with the patience we extend to the parts of us still learning how to heal. Because without self-compassion, even kindness toward others becomes hollow. Without self-compassion, the spiritual path turns harsh. We meditate to improve, we breathe to fix, we practice to escape. But the Dharma is not a performance, it is a homecoming. And no one can return home if they feel they are not welcome. This is why the Buddha taught metta, loving kindness, as a foundational practice, to soften the mind, to warm the heart, to dissolve the illusion of separation. And compassion is what naturally arises when we see clearly, when we stop judging pain as weakness, when we stop dividing people into worthy and unworthy, when we realize that all beings, every single one, wants the same thing, to be free from suffering, to feel safe, to feel loved. Even the people who hurt us are hurting. Even the ones we call difficult are carrying their own storms. Even the anger we see in others is often fear in disguise. This doesn't mean we excuse harm. It means we understand it. It means we set boundaries with love, not hatred. It means we forgive, not because they always deserve it, but because we do. And perhaps most importantly, it means we begin to look inward with the same eyes, to see our confusion with tenderness, to hold our doubt with gentleness, to say to our inner world, I see you, I'm here. You don't have to do anything to earn my presence. Dear listener, you don't have to wait until you're healed to love yourself. You don't have to be wise to be kind. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. Compassion is not the result of awakening. It is the path to it. It is the bridge between brokenness and wholeness, the balm that softens shame, the force that keeps the heart open, even in the middle of pain. And when practiced again and again, in small, honest moments, it begins to change everything. You stop rushing, you start listening, you stop striving, you start honoring. You begin to move through the world differently. Not with judgment, but with presence. Not with defense, but with care. So if you're feeling tired, be kind. If you're feeling lost, be kind. If you've made mistakes, be kind. If you don't know what comes next, be kind. To yourself, to the breath, to this moment. Let compassion be your refuge. Let it be your practice. Let it be your path. Not as a duty, but as a remembering. That beneath every pain is a longing to be seen. That beneath every fear is a longing to be loved. And that beneath every act of compassion is freedom. Dear listener, you've just walked through a path of quiet remembering. Not to become someone else, not to fix a flawed self, but to return to what has always been true. That you are not broken, you are not behind, you are not too much or not enough. You only forgot the simplicity of being, forgot the peace that's available when you stop performing, forgot the wisdom that lives beneath the noise. The world told you to improve, but the Dharma reminds you to return, to stillness, to clarity, to compassion, to your original nature, already whole, already worthy, already awake. Along this journey, you've learned to sit with what hurts, to see thoughts as weather, to release the grip of control, to meet uncertainty with presence, to remember death not as fear but as fuel for tenderness, to allow compassion to begin with you, to become nobody, and in doing so, become real. And maybe now, in this moment, something inside you has softened, not with answers, but with permission. Permission to stop fighting your own experience. Permission to stop measuring your worth by how productive, polished, or perfect you are. You see, healing was never about achieving a new version of you. It's about befriending what's already here. The tired parts, the anxious parts, the parts that still don't know how to let go. They don't need to be erased. They need to be held, to be met with the tenderness you've so often given others, but rarely to yourself. And perhaps for the first time, you're beginning to realize that your presence is enough. Not because you've done everything right, but because you're finally learning to stay with what is. To sit in the storm without needing to escape. To breathe through the ache without needing to hide. To love what's here, even if it's incomplete. Especially when it's incomplete. That's where the real peace lives. Not in perfection, but in intimacy. The kind that says, I don't need to be fixed, I only need to be met. That's the truth you're remembering now. This is not the end of the path. This is a beginning, not a finish line, but a homecoming. Not a solution, but a softening. You don't need to hold on. You don't need to arrive. You're already here. You are allowed to rest, to breathe, to be. You don't have to figure everything out. You only need to trust the unfolding, the breath that carries you, the truth that meets you, the stillness that holds it all. Let this be a gentle reminder. Healing is not about becoming better. It's about becoming honest, more open, more kind, more present. It's about looking in the mirror with soft eyes and saying, even now, I am enough. So let the striving fall away. Let the armor loosen. Let your breath bring you home. again and again. And if this message resonated with you, if something in these words reminded you of your inner peace, subscribe to Mindful Dharma. Return to this space whenever the world feels loud, whenever your mind feels heavy, whenever you forget and need help remembering. This space will be here, a place of calm, a place of truth, a place of coming back. One breath, one moment, one gentle truth. You are enough.